hope this microphone is working. Okay, hi everybody. I have an announcement. I am here. Hello. Without further ado. Okay, so I'm excited to talk to you guys about quilting. As we all know, quilting is the place that I live. Piecing is a means to an end. So if anyone happens to accidentally piece any of my kit, I will not be mad about it. But I'm excited to talk to you guys about quilting today because, like I said, free motion quilting is definitely my special interest in the quilting area. And it's really cool to think about how you can use free motion quilting to continue telling stories in your quilts. As quilters, we know that pretty much every quilt tells a story, maybe even whether we like it or not. But we love to tell stories as quilters, and that's such a beautiful thing. And I'm really excited to talk about how we can continue a story even after the piecing is done. And even if we are not doing every stitch of the quilting process, we can still have a mindset where we can let the quilting inform the message that we're trying to say in our quilting. So we're going to do I'm going to demonstrate kind of a glimpse into the fun quilty part of my brain and the way that I approach different quilt tops and how I decide what the stitches are going to do, because the stitches can either detract from the story, they can help tell the story, they can tell a different story or a different narrative, they can take things off track, or they can reinforce what our pieced blocks are saying. So I have some quilts here that I want to show you with the emphasis on looking at the quilting stitches, and then we will kind of just do an impromptu demonstration of different ways that you can approach a quilt top and what the quilting can do for the pieced quilt. So I showed you guys this quilt on our first night, and this quilt, I would say, is probably one of the quilts in my repertoire that tells the strongest story. And I talked a little bit about it at dinner, but I wanted to go deeper because this is a quilt that has such a strong symbolic meaning to me, and I'm sure that as quilters we all can think in our own mind of a quilt that we've made or a quilt that has been given to us that has a really strong message behind it. And this is a very emotional quilt for me. Luckily, I wrote down everything I want to tell you, so that will help me dissociate while I share it. And then, of course, after this lecture is over, you're welcome to come look at this closer as you see what the stitches mean. So I'm going to just come back to my iPad where I have everything written down.
Give me a smile. I want to post, but you were looking so serious.
But I would love a couple volunteers with upper body arm strength who would like to hold this for everyone so that as I'm reading the story of this quilt, you can pick out the images that I'm talking about. This quilt is called Coven Lovin. And I'm going to read what I wrote so that it's all nice and organized and on track. And I hope it doesn't come out too robotic. But again, this is so that I could stay composed. Oh, okay. Squeeze my butt cheeks. Okay.
That stops you from crying.
I did not know that. Okay. Squeeze my cheeks. Now nobody look at my butt cheeks. All right. So as I read about this, I would love for you to see if you can try to pick out some of the elements. Now, as you can see, the quilting was done with invisible thread. So I understand that it's going to be hard to see some of that. However, I do also have the quilting diagram of how I quilted everything that I'm going to show you on screen so that you can pull that out as well. Okay, so here goes. Man, this quilt is quite heavy for me, both literally and figuratively. Here's how it was made. For this quilt, I used Allison Glass Kaleidoscope solids along with a few of her prints from her Sunprint collection and an assortment of her feathers collection. I also used 7 different Kona cotton solids, each one that coordinated with the Allison Glass prints. Each star in the arrangement was made up of 6 equilateral triangles of a paper piece pattern that I designed. Even though a star only uses 6 different colors, there were 7 different color schemes to choose from. So each star uses 6 out of the 7 block options. I knew I wanted this quilt to be ultra snuggly, and so I used a layer of Warm Company's Warm and Plush cotton batting. Then for the backing fabric, I used a plush blanket from Walmart that was medium tan color. For the entire quilt, I used invisible thread so that it would add texture without taking anything away from the fabric colors at all. When I bound it, I wanted a thicker edge to really make sure that everything was protected. So I did a 5-inch double French fold binding so that the finished binding would be 1 inch instead of the typical 1/4 inch thickness. But what does it mean? This quilt has so much symbolic meaning that it's incredibly sacred and special to me. Virtually every single aspect of the quilt has some sort of symbolic meaning about my connection with yin. The name, Coven Lovin. This quilt was made as a token of my reflection and gratitude for all things feminine in my life. As I made it, I contemplated and found strength in both my inner divine femininity, as well as the love and support I have received throughout my life from those who have been strong female role models in my life. The colors. There are 7 different equilateral triangle blocks throughout the quilt, but each star combination only includes 6 of the 7. Each color of the 7 is meant to represent all the various women in my life. There are multiple women who are important to me, represented by each of the colors. Some of my girlfriends are more loud, bright, and vivid, and others are more calm and self-contained. And some are both at different times. The star blocks. Each star represents the timestamps throughout my life. These can either be pivotal moments that happened on a specific day or seasons of life when I was a certain age or at a certain time in my life. Some of these memories are experiences that are sad, traumatic, or hard, and others are happy, exciting, or growing moments. Just as it is important to recognize the 6 groups of women who were there for me in those times in my life, it's also important for me to recognize that one other color is not present. In every given star, there is always one color not present, and that is okay. This is how it's meant to be. The light gray fabric. So this is the fabric immediately around each of the stars. The light and dark gray fabric is constant throughout the quilt. The light gray fabric glows and around the edges of each star formation. This light gray fabric represents my foremothers, my ancestors, all the women who came before me, who I have never met, known their names or their personalities, but are the very reason that I even exist to this day. Their glowing presence throughout the stars of my life's experiences is constant, albeit quiet. The seam between the color and the light gray is the veil between the living and the dead, a stark and humbling contrast. The light gray is constant and covers every edge of my life. It is reliable. The dark gray fabric. This represents the ultimate universal cosmic divine feminine. It is all-encompassing, all-framing, and expansive. It is the board space without end. This is why I also chose to bind the quilt in the same dark gray fabric, because she cannot be boxed in. She has gone on for forever and will continue on for forever. She is the thing from whence we all came. And outside the edges of this quilt's binding, there are infinite other star combinations encircled about by their own clusters of light gray and colors of personality traits. The star formation. There are 19 star blocks in total, a prime indivisible number. Each 19 star formation represents each woman. She has her own 19 star formation, as do I. Our journey cannot be easily divided or arranged any differently, but in this formation provides harmony. The center star represents the deepest and more cherished sacred experiences, the formative early years of life where even though she is no longer in the womb, she is still being arranged and added to and built upon. Her mind and body are still being discovered and connected together. The next layer of 6 stars represents the more nuanced and complex experiences. There is more gray area, more angles of intricacy. The outer 12 stars embellish who she has become. She continues to swirl and form and rotate and swap through paths with other women, in and out, weaving together and apart in an infinite loop. She is never not encircled by the divine feminine. When I worked on it, while making this quilt, I was extremely deliberate about the mental headspace I was in while working on it. Making each of the paper-pieced blocks was fairly tedious. There was a lot of beauty and contemplation that took place in my mind and heart while in that tedium of paper piecing. Sometimes I worked on piecing these blocks while I was spending sacred quality time with women who I am close to. At other times, I would listen to materials and resources that helped me to better develop a connection with the divine feminine, my female friendships, and my own womanhood. One of the most significant times that I worked on this quilt was over the course of a 4-day women's retreat. I deliberately got my own hotel room so that I could have all the space and alone time that I needed. Each night after the long day's workshop of heavy mental stretching about getting to know myself better, I would listen to reinforcing materials while my hands would go to town, cutting, piecing, pressing, and tearing papers through every single paper piece block. Another significant time that I worked on the piecing of this quilt was during an intimate quilting retreat with 2 of my close girlfriends. We laughed, we cried, we spoke of sacred and personal things and witnessed each other with vulnerability and compassion. The quilting symbolism, starting with the center of the quilt. You may be able to flip it over and see the back and see some of the quilting as well. But also the quilting is in conjunction with the star blocks. So maybe let's keep it on the back for a minute and you can imagine where those stars line up. The center, so this is all about the quilting lines that you see here and the symbolism. I know it's so heavy, so thanks for bearing with me. Okay, so the center star. The center star represents a breast and nipple adorning the middle of a flower's pistil. Her breast is the source of all sustaining life from the womb to the tomb. Her flower represents not just life, but cyclical and fertile life. They are seasons, growing and stasis, flourishing and winter rest. The pebbles that flank the flower are the often harsh landscape. Here, flowers will continue to thrive despite the requirement to sometimes weave and dip through those unforgiving stones. This is her first obstacle. Not to antagonize purposelessly, but to train through resistance. Her roots will not avoid those stones, but wrap around them and anchor herself for the weathering to come. Next is an empty, unblocked path, a reminder to let her next sentence be her breath. She knows that she must not always exhale words, but sometimes just the silence to sit with. Following that are wedges that bounce out and back in, expanding and contracting. They are topped with a small pebble representing jewels or nuggets of wisdom, reaped after exhaling whatever it is that lived inside of her and inhaling the energy that returns and she chooses to receive. Beyond that is a frame of winding ribbon candy, not only a single line, but with a second inner pass. She is reminded of the winding road that is not always a straight line, but when she is flexible and able to dance back and forth with the wind instead of being carried by it, she will stay the course. She remembers that sometimes there is a long path and at other times she can take shortcuts. Both of these paths are needed to create both positive and negative. In the crooks of those ribbons are straight sun rays, a reminder of the constants of the rising and setting sun, that with each new morning comes hope and possibility, and with each sunset comes rest and recognition that even through everything the day brought her, she is still alive. Further still, chains of pearls of varying sizes. We are all given pearls to arrange and share, or not, to share as we please. Pearls are sacred and not meant for all, but are to be given out with a select few, tokens of a trade, of love, of energy, of gestures, of kindness and generosity. Sometimes those strands are sparse, but pearls are always returned at some point for a complete chain. The clamshells in the next row remind her to search for those pearls. Sometimes they need to stay closed in order to take the time they need to grow. And at other times they are ready to burst open and release those pearls, making space for the next season of creation. The 4 petal hibiscus flowers in each gray section are a ghost. The 4 petal hibiscus flowers in each gray section are a ghost of the seasons that came before her. The infinite floral lays that adorn the mothers and sisters before her, while they no longer possess, their outline remains. In the appointed wedges that contour from the center to edge, her path runs parallel to other women for a time, but then eventually they meet. In that meeting is a nugget of gold, enclosed in time and protected by the contours of each woman's path. As they lock hands, they add protection above that gold, filling in the point of the path. The curls in the border fill it in tightly, swirling in a clockwise manner, signifying the finite yet undefiable, undeniable passage of time. No matter the roadblock, rest or efficiency, she is allotted the same hours and seconds as her sister. As a river it flows, and sometimes this river she tiptoes on the bank. Other times she wades across it with steady and firm footing. And other times she lays peacefully on her back, becoming one with the water and surrendering to the current swift. knowing that it will take her exactly where she is supposed to go, exactly where she will end up regardless. So she trust falls on the surface, letting the dips and curls rock her to sleep until it is time to stand up again. The final outer crown points of this majestic star explosion outwards at every angle. It reminds her of the inevitability that she will expand, that her words, actions, and deeds will flow infinitely outward in all directions simultaneously. Her existence is forever marked in time like ripples of a stone. Finally, along the outer edge, the organized chaos of the vandalistic and rebellious graffiti that encircles her entire being are all the parts that she is yet to sum up. They overlap her colorful outer stars, her life's experiences, yet they are not contained but continuously bleed. Their starts may be obvious, yet their ends are elusive and mysterious. This thin-lined matter intertwines, leaving no space, no area undisturbed. It flows onward and outward in every direction, following the 6 pointed areas that command them to do so. To the edge of space, outside of our tiny myopic view, this is proof that she is forever. She is endless. She is infinite. Not only did she exist, but she still does. I did good. I didn't even smear any makeup. No. So I would love for you, anytime throughout the day, if you'd like to come look closer and hopefully pull out some of that symbolism. And you are welcome to take any of that symbolism or idea with you on your creative journey.
Did it help? Did you do it?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, like
it did help. And if anything, it could, yeah, it's just like focus on my butt, focus on my butt. But don't say the word butt when I'm reading.
Right, you can't say the word.
Right. Yeah, I'm like, and then this part of the quilt, squeezing my butt cheeks. I mean, what?
I'm excited.
Thank you. Okay, so I have a few select quilts that are all kind of similar style. They have a diamond Lone Star situation. I'm kind of on this side quest in my own creative journey with trying to conquer making a Lone Star effectively. So this quilt is the first Lone Star I made, and with this quilt I learned not to try to make a Lone Star with, what is the name of this type of fabric? Now it's escaping me. It's like the wovens, like it's the kaleidoscope salt linen. Yeah, it's got like a weird stretch. So that was not fun. But this quilt, yeah. So I love this quilt so much because like, so these are fussy cut pieces. So like Giuseppe Rubato, he had a line called Quantum and another called Redux, and that's where I pulled these pieces. So I didn't piece all of these little ones. It's just a fussy cut piece. And I actually fussy cut that same fabric for my binding. So I get that pattern along my binding. And I wanted to do curved corners, so I did a spandex gold because it has a nice, it behaves on a curve.
Did you foundation paper piece that?
No, I just pieced it. Yeah, it was.
Saying you don't piece well.
I don't. No, I don't. It was, I did, exactly. And that's the thing. So with this quilt, the quilting is what saved my ass from the poor piecing. So quilting Carly was kind of cursing piecing Carly, and piecing Carly was like, thank you for just doing it because I know this is harder for you. But you can see how, as I show you these quilts, I want you to really focus on the quilting aspect and think about how the quilting can inform your message of your piecing, right? Like if I had pieced this and just stitched in the ditch, it also would mean that whatever message I'm trying to say has to be said through the piecing because the quilting is like zipping its lip, right? But I didn't. When I quilted this, I thought, how can I use the piecing pattern to like kind of waltz with the quilting? And so using each of the different sections, so here we can hold it in half. Since it's symmetrical, you'll see the same thing on the bottom as the top. But you can see where there's some areas where I did honor those ditches perfectly. and then other areas where I mimicked them or echoed them or used them as kind of a guideline, but strayed from that ditch, right? Now, this is something that we talk about quite a bit in my graffiti quilting class. So the vocabulary around quilting like this is called either primary interpretive quilting or secondary interpretive quilting. So I want you to remember those two phrases because I'll use those. Does anyone, can anyone define what it means to quilt a quilt top interpretively? When you're quilting a quilt, you can either do an edge to edge or you can interpret, right? So an edge to edge will always just go across. It does not care about the piecing at all. Interpreting the quilt top means that the piecing informs what happens with the quilting. So now a subset of that, we have primary interpretive, meaning the quilting obeys the piecing, like stitch in the ditch. Stitch in the ditch would be a prime example of very obedient interpretive quilting. Yes?
So, say you have a block,
Uh-huh.
and you pieced a block, let's just do 2.5-inch squares.
Uh-huh.
So if you free motion each little square, would that be interpretive? Or, and do something?
Like a different symbol in each square? Yes, that would be interpretive. Yes, because the bound in which you are quilting is the block.
Right.
Yeah.
So primary interpretive?
Yeah, so we have a primary interpretive and secondary interpretive. And I will, when we do a little bit of drawing, I will show you those. So let me show you another quilt. So this is a good example. This one's heavy.
Wait,
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I want to know, have you won any awards on that quilt?
I have not entered it into anything.
You should.
I went on like a competition quilting like stint for a few years, and it kind of like brought something out of me that I don't know. Yeah, I'm number 7 out of 8 children, and the competitiveness in me, like I still have, yes, I have some shadow work with okay, this might sound like a humble brag. Just take it for what it is. I won 3rd place in Houston International Quilt Festival, and I was a sore loser because I wanted to win first. But like 3rd place at Houston, be so for real. Like that's insane, right? Yeah. And the reason I was so sore is because I did win 1st place in Houston the year before. And I was like, okay, if that quilt won first, I could do even more. And surely, logically, I should win. And anyways, so that's my little side quest of confession that.
Okay, so as long as you've won some stuff for your.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Oh, okay. You were like vetting me. Like she doesn't even have any ribbons.
This is just a couch quilt.
I know. Yeah. Thank you. That's sweet. That's really sweet. I mean, this quilt is one that was really special to me too because it was one that really challenged me. Like it really brought out some anxiety that led to growth that was really valuable. So whether this quilt has ever won money or ribbons, I'm learning how to embrace like feeling like a winner because I got to be the judge of my own work. And I gave myself a blue ribbon in my own room by myself. And so, yeah.
And sometimes we're our own worst enemy too.
Yeah. 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 I think I have like validation trauma that like I learned that about myself when I did competitive quilting. And it's still like that's not like a shade to competitive quilting. I think there's a good place in our creative journey for both outer validation and inner validation, and both are great. And a blue ribbon, yeah. I just piece my own one into it. So, okay, so here is another quilt that this is an example of secondary interpretation. So you're going to see from the quilting that it's so big. It's just so big. And this is a quilt that I can't really bring in person except for when I'm driving. So you guys are lucky because this would exceed my luggage if I tried. So yeah. So
filmed it was on her stories, and I just was
Yeah.
obsessively watching her
Yeah.
post about this.
yeah. So the pattern for this quilt is called Cosmic Feathers. It's by Tara Lee Quiltery, the same one who designed our heart foundation paper piecing pattern. Okay, so let's talk. Yes. Not foundation, it's all just pieced. And this fabric, I named this quilt Siren Song because this fabric lured me to my death. But it was like fun to look at the whole time that I was like drowning. Yeah. It's just so like, it looks like pressed metal. It looks like carved metal. It's so beautiful, but it was a bitch. So, yeah.
I watched her do it.
Yeah, she was there. Okay, so when you're looking at this quilt top, can you start to understand what I mean by secondary interpretation? So I have motifs that clearly are like kind of laid over the top of the piecing, but then there's lots of areas where I disregard the piecing and I add a secondary design, almost like a ghost or like a transparent filter over the top, right? Okay, so in the very center of the star, I focused on primary interpretive, where I used those diamond blocks to give me the paths and the designated space. But then after that, when I added this cloud, that would be secondary, because the cloud is following something, but there's not a perfect defined line that I'm going on, right? Like I interpreted this circle motif. Okay. And then coming further out, there's more primary interpretive areas. So these two can kind of be interchangeable. And it's almost like a spectrum, where it's like the far side of primary interpretation is all stitch in the ditch. And the other side of that is where it's so secondary that it becomes an edge to edge, because none of the piecing was regarded. So what I like to do when I approach a quilt top for quilting is, number one, my main goal, especially if I'm quilting someone else's top, I need to make sure that as a quilter, I'm respecting whatever the message is that the maker or the owner is trying to say. And so that can happen in a lot of different ways. Like if I were to quilt this with black thread, it would detract. It would not look good because it would be pulling away from all that bright color. So this I actually quilted with this white, it's basically this color. It's just like a shiny, I think it's rayon. I think I used a 40 weight rayon. So I knew it would blend, but I also knew it would show up a little bit, and that was fine. Because it doesn't mean, like with the Coven Lovin quilt, I used invisible thread, where it literally just sucked whatever color fabric it was on, and that's a choice. And using silver thread, where it would show up on the color but definitely blend into silver, that's a choice. And if I were to use black, that would be a different choice, right? And so you'll learn more and more about what choices to make, and realize up front right now, here today in your brain, that the definition of what is the right and wrong choice is very fluid and very gray area. But as an artist, it's also something that probably only you will be able to answer. And if someone's paying you to make that choice, they also get a say, right? But as an artist, when we're making our own work, it's okay to lean into our intuitive choices. And either one, we love the result, and then we put that in our toolbox and we say, ooh, I'm gonna do that again. Or we hate the result and we learn and it sticks with us, and then we use it to inform our future choices. Yep. Okay, so the next quilts I wanna show you, so these are,
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Where do you start? Did you start in the middle?
So that one I did start, I did mark some of that before I even put it on my frame. The main area that I marked was the cloud.
I was gonna say, you had to have marked it.
Yes, and I took a photo of this quilt top and I planned out my quilting, everything except the graffiti. I don't ever plan that in advance. I just know this area will be graffiti quilted.
And you are going to show
Yes.
a representation
Sure.
of her thought process. You'll
Yeah.
see it on,
Yeah,
it'll be projected.
yeah, so
When you say you took a picture, do you take a picture and put it on your iPad?
Yeah.
And then color it
Yep,
out?
exactly. I'll draw over the top, and I will show that on the projector. Yep. This quilt, I used a layer of warm and natural, and also a layer of wool. I don't. I just like, yeah. Yeah, when I was actually quilting, it was on a stand-up long arm. Yeah, I don't think I have the muscle inside of me to wrestle this on anything but a long arm. Yeah. What?
Wrestling this on your sit down would be a nightmare.
Yeah. It was even hard on my stand-up because I was having to shift my poles back and forth.
I was going to say your leader bars, you know, your leader bars between your, I don't know what machine you have, but the machine, your leader bars, and the roll up.
Yeah.
I guess I've had trouble, and mine's not nearly as thick as that.
Yeah. So this one took some maneuvering where I advanced the quilt just enough to get to where I knew my clouds would be because I marked those. And then I did the top as much as I could, but even because it's so big, I had to advance my fabric and then advance it backwards. And you loosen your top pole a ton and you basically let everything roll onto your bottom and just like,
Float your quilt?
no, I'm too scared to float. I'm such a sissy. I need control. I need to know that the whole quilt is laid flat. No shade to anyone who floats. You're just a psychopath. Like,
I'm a sociopath in training.
I float, but I don't do anything that big. I
Yeah.
only have a 10-foot frame,
Okay, yeah.
but I don't do things that big.
Yeah, it was definitely a challenge for sure. Okay, so let's start with the small one. Okay, so I have the same quilt top. So these next three.
So you can point at it.
Okay, so you stand more in the middle. Is my head cut off in the video? Okay, cool. Oh, thank you. Okay, so these next three quilts, they're the exact same quilt top design, printed at 3 different sizes and quilted 3 different ways. So these will be a really good example of starting to see how, like, the piecing and the quilting can be interchanged, right? Like, I think maybe sometimes quilters will think, okay, I pieced this pattern, what does it show? Like, does it bug anyone when you get a piecing pattern and at the end it just says quilt as desired?
Yeah.
Right? But then you just look at the front cover and just quilt it however it's quilted on the front cover. So these will be a good example of showing how you can really interchange things, and the decisions you make also have, you'll make different decisions based on different factors. Like, people will say, okay, how do I quilt this? And I'm like, well, are you going to snuggle it? Are you going to hang it on a wall? How big is it? How small is it? Who's it for? Where is it going? Is it a show quilt? Is it someone you care about? Is it someone that you don't care about and you want them to stop asking you to quilt for them? Like, figure out all these things. That made it sound like I mess up people's quilts to get them to go. Yeah.
Size per square inch goes
Yeah. So let's start with the small one. So this is called, so this was for a class I taught a few years ago called Lone Star Border Bliss. And it was all about different ways to interpret a Lone Star quilt and then lots of different border designs. So you can see this quilt is small and it's also quilted not very densely. Like, these are kind of dense, but then the rest is all kind of pretty open, right?
Carly in her minimalist era.
Does this feel minimalist?
For you.
Oh, it was restrained for sure. Yeah. But this was also, I was teaching a class, teaching people how to free motion quilt. And so the whole class was, okay, let me show you how to draw this design and then how to quilt it, all based on interpreting these different blocks and borders that we see.
Sit down?
Yes, this one I quilted on a sit down. So you can see, would you consider this quilting to be primary interpretive or secondary interpretive?
It's okay.
Yes, I love that. Exactly. So what Sonia was saying is that it's nice to think about the quilting, because sometimes when you buy a quilt kit, it kind of loses its personality, right? Or it takes away all the decisions that you could have made with the piecing and the pattern and the fabric and those types of choices. Now it's like you have a whole new world of choices when you take it to either be quilted or to quilt it yourself, which reinfuses it with the personality. Exactly. Yes. So to answer the question, I would consider this mostly primary interpretive. There's not really, like, okay, yes, we did take bigger blocks that technically could be considered like, oh, if there were seams there, and we disregarded that. But the main motifs are all kind of being respected. It's kind of like this design goes here, 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 and here. And this one goes there, there, and it's kind of organized and repeated, and it's more of like filling in each designated space. it's more planned out, and there's not a lot of straying by the quilting off of what the piecing has already said. This is how this quilt is shaped, how it's going to look. Now the quilting is just like, hi, yeah, can I sit by you? You know, and it's like the junior companion to the piecing. The piecing is in the driver's seat of telling the story of this quilt. And the quilting is like, yeah, girl, get it. And letting the piecing be the star. It's a strong supporting character. But it's also cool because like when you're on a side quest like that, someone might say to the quilting like, wait, but tell me about this little curve here. And the quilting can be like, okay, but then back to the piecing, right? So it's like telling these stories that are, you're choosing as the artist where to put that focus. And that's a choice, right? Okay, so now let's go to a more advanced one. So this is the medium size of that same design. Okay, and we can start to see more secondary stuff going on, right?
Slightly less restrained.
Less restrained, yes. Oh, sorry. Thanks, children. It's just like popcorn. It's like popcorn.
Quilts are meant to be loved.
I literally pulled this off the floor in front of the TV in the playroom before I packed it. So that's embarrassing. That's like walking out of the bathroom with toilet paper stuck to your foot. Thank you.
It's more secondary.
So this one, it does get a little more secondary. So a good example of secondary structure is right here. So see how I have straight sun rays, but they're not honoring my piece lines, right? Okay. It might be a little bit tricky to see, but. Okay, so, and then even in this middle star, so we start to see, like, I stitched in the ditch for this row, but then I also stitched over the ditch, like across the ditch, okay? So I basically, when I came up with this schematic, I kind of took it row by row. Like you can see it started in the center and it's radiating outward, as the quilting probably should because it's a Lone Star quilt and the eye is drawing to the center. So it wouldn't make sense for me to be like, let's make this diamond be the thing that everything's bursting out of, because then everyone would be like, why? Like, why that one? Maybe not like sneering at you, why, but like it causes the viewer to ask a question and say, why did you choose to do what you did? And as an artist, it's helpful for us to be able to defend our creative decisions. Even if people don't agree with them, we at least, the fact that we put thought into it, I think goes a long way in saying, number one, I did it because I liked it. But number two, saying, well, I wanted the quilting to talk to the piecing in this way, or this is the story that I wanted to tell, right? Like if I had some super emotional symbolism, like I did with my Coven Lovin quilt, and I chose to offset it, then I sure as heck would make sure to be like, I offset it because of X, Y, and Z of this like theoretical approach that I'm taking that, you know, and I can reinforce that decision. Because at the end of the day, I'm hoping that the people who look at my quilts like them and enjoy them and can pull something from them. And so if I can add symbolism in a way that's visual, that when they, like we've all seen, I'm sure, we've had that experience where maybe we're walking through a quilt show or even just a quilt shop or even just surfing Pinterest, and there's that one quilt that you see it and you're like it hits you more than just your eyes and your brain. It's like, oh, I need to see it closer, right? And that's what the quilting can do for that. Okay, so let's go to the largest one now. So this one, I used like a plush blanket from Walmart, not just the regular fleece blanket. The texture, actually, let's switch it, because the texture it really is so good on this one.
Okay. Do you live, so is this a cold climate?
I live in northern Utah, but I'm cold year round. I have the worst
I
circulation
live in Southern California, it's 75.
year round, yeah.
And we love Minky in Utah.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah, we do.
Yeah, so you can start to see the intricacies, right? So like if you were just looking at the back of this quilt, you could almost argue that you're not 100% sure that it's a Lone Star. It might be a Judy Niemeyer. I mean, then you're like, Carly can't do a Judy Niemeyer. But based on the quilting, you could be like, oh, what's the situation going on with the front of the quilt based on how the quilting is organized? We could have flipped this over and it could be a whole cloth. Technically, it is a whole cloth because this is all one piece of fabric. It just has different bright colors. So let's switch to the front.
So do you don't have a batting in there? Because
I do. Nope, I still use a batting. Yep, especially because this is so fluffy. Right. If you don't put batting, then when you're quilting, that fluff pulls through.
What about the stretch? Did it stretch?
Not bad, but again, I was on a stand-up machine, so I can really kind of make it submit and not crank my poles too tight. So there are logistic things that you have to be careful with loading stretchy fabric onto a long arm, but luckily it's not so scary that I didn't do it. Yeah, it's overcomeable.
Play on the front of this, only on the back.
This one I actually had hung up in my studio for a while. My studio has like a little tiny kitchenette thing, and I'll just hang quilts in front of that so that people can't see into the kitchen. So I hung this quilt for a little while. Okay, so let's start to talk a little bit more about primary and secondary here. I would say that this quilt definitely has a secondary fill, at least in the center, right? Because the first 1, 2, 3, 4 colors, I don't care about the piecing at all. Like I did a circle and then I filled it with pebbles. And those pebbles are not symmetrical, even though that star in the middle is symmetrical, right? And then the ribbon candy just crosses right over those purple, where the seams would be. I didn't stitch in the ditch. I just said, I don't care about the ditch. I'm doing a ribbon candy in a circle here, okay? But then as we get further out, there is some respect for the piecing. So it's almost like I used the piecing as my template to keep me on track to make sure that everything was symmetrical. And then coming out further, I can block off sections and say, okay, I know that there are 3 rows of color here. I'm gonna just merge them into one and treat that as one row. And so the quilting interprets those 3 rows, but then disregards the lines in between, right? Yeah.
This is a technical question. So when you have it on your long arm and you have, say, the center, star center, and you're free motioning around it and deciding what you're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
My technical question is,
Yeah.
in that row of your long arm, do you go all the way out, or do you build, move it up, just to the center, and then?
So with this one, I knew that I was going to have blocked out areas. And so I was able to quilt from top to bottom, even though the design itself radiates outward. Right. Like I knew that this circle was going to...
more layers of understanding.
It does, but also a marking pen can be your best friend, and that's okay. Like anyone who tells you that marking is cheating, you can unfriend them on Facebook because you don't need that in your life. Like you don't need people trying to scoff at you for being creative and however you feel you need to be creative. So there is some logistics, yes. But the nice thing too is that because I try to plan out just on my iPad drawing, that releases a lot of anxiety that's very low stakes. I can sit on my iPad for hours and draw something and unpick it by erasing it, draw it again, so that by the time I get to my quilting machine, I'm like, okay, I know what this path looks like. I'm just gonna take one step at a time. Exactly, yep. Because those decisions have been made, and now it's just like, all right, I know what choice I'm gonna make, I just gotta execute that choice.
So you do the full?
With this one, yes. Yeah. So it'll depend with every quilt. There have been quilts that were large size that I literally loaded and then rolled the whole layer to the center and worked there and then rolled back and forth. In fact, the one that's on my frame right now, it's a panel of a heart, and the heart is like radiating designs outward. But luckily it's a little smaller of a panel. So the logistics of rolling to the middle, quilting, and then having to backwards roll it and loosen some stuff, like you have to kind of cheat code your frames a little.
Your leaders and
yeah, yes. But that's another choice, right? It's like we can choose, are we gonna take a path of less resistance but get less of a payoff? Or are we gonna figure out that extra effort because the design that we want, the story we wanna tell with the quilting is worth the effort to give it that impact? And both are right and wrong. It's up to you to decide when and wear and what that looks like.
So once you have your design planned out, once you get it on your long arm, about how many hours do you have invested in this one?
This one, I did not even keep track. It was, since it was part of a class, I would quilt a little bit of it to get ready for the class, and then during my live stream, I would demo different areas. And then after the live stream, I went back and quilted the rest of it. So I couldn't tell you. I didn't. If I had to quilt this again, exactly like this, it would probably take me 5 2-hour sessions.
Years.
Like I think probably in a 2-hour session, right after my kids are in bed and before I go to bed, I could probably quilt this section, these. Like, it's crazy because now that I record a lot of my quilting, it surprises me how short my videos are. Like this section, I could probably quilt this whole section in 15 minutes. Like, it's not.
I feel like that.
Yeah. Which, here's a little plug. I'm trying to get monetized on YouTube. If you want to just watch me quilt for hours, go watch my YouTube videos. I just made a whole playlist called ASMR Quilting, and I'm going to add more to it. Anyways, so yeah, so I think it kind of depends. And I mean, there's also other factors. That's why I'd never charge by the hour. Because if I'm efficient, I get paid less? I don't think so. And if something goes wrong, it's not up to the customer to pay for my time while I troubleshoot my machine or troubleshoot my thread or whatever. So.
See, me, myself, and I am kind of anal, and I need to do this whole row. I never even thought about just doing a corner, and then doing another corner, and then filling it in.
Yeah.
It's like, to me, I gotta do this roll, and
Well,
it
see, and
really scares me
yeah.
to go backwards,
Yeah.
to loosen that thing up.
Look up full basting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Baste your quilt, you can roll back and forth.
Yeah, and I do this base.
Yeah.
Like all the way
Yes,
across?
all the way across.
See, and I think that's the thing that's cool about like this quilt is that it looks so unified, right? It looks so like a Lone Star quilt is very centric and then coming out. And so the quilting, to be able to match that, where I honor that and have it come out, it looks really intricate, but it's unified. But while it's unified, it's still compartments. That it's like, maybe I get to my machine, I don't have to look at the whole diagram and have my head explode. I can just say, okay, just this row. Like, I'm just quilting this one row, and then I stop and I go back to my diagram and I say, okay, what's next? All right. And being able to think about it a step at a time, knowing that I've already made the decisions to keep the quilting unified in a certain way, right? So I think that's something as quilters, especially if you're timid to actually quilt your quilts, there's probably a couple different factors of fatigue. Number one, you've been looking at that quilt top already for 15 to 100 hours in the piecing process. Maybe years, yeah. But then also it's like you have been so hyper-focused on what the pattern looks like. It's not even a thought in our brain of like how you're going to quilt it. But that's okay, you don't have to know that. It's when you get to the quilting, and even still, it's not something you have to know right away. You can look at a quilt and say, this edge to edge might look good, this one might look good, this might look good. Maybe I can kind of interpret it, especially if you're like, there's such a stark contrast between computerized quilting and free motion quilting, right? And there's very clear identifiers about what a free motion quilted quilt will look like versus a computerized one. And I think, at least for me, because I have access to a computer as well as free motion, there are definitely times that I'm like, I think I'll just let my computer handle this, and it'll be perfect and precise and beautiful and amazing. But then there's other times that I'm like, no, my body needs to go through this experience, right? And I find free motion quilting to be very intrinsically like, I'm gonna cry again because I get so cheesy about it, but like there's just something so beautiful and irreplaceable about the movement of stitches that only your body can do. And so, you know, like I think about being a free motion quilting teacher, and it's like, if I can just help you figure out what's already in you. I'm not over here being like, okay, let me download this design into your brain. Let me teach you this particular design. I can say, let me show you what the possibilities are, and then let your body figure some shit out. And you'll start to figure out what you like and what you don't like and what comes naturally or what you are afraid of. And that is all such beautiful parts of the quilting process as a whole. I did want to pull up a quilt design and kind of show you some of, when I approach a quilt top, what my schematics look like and how I kind of plan things out. So let me, will you grab that light? So I kind of jumped in the deep end where the body, the muscle memory experience came before my brain connecting and being like, wait, I'm an artist. I can do art this way. It was like, no, same design, same design. Yes, this works. Okay, take it off, put it, you know. But then when I was like, oh my gosh, I could be an artist with a quilting machine, it was about like synchronizing my body with my brain. And then, so it's a kind of a weird backwards way where my learning journey of free motion quilting was not as focused on artistry. It was really focused on like reps of the quilting machine.
That leads into my second question. My second question was, when you purchased your first long arm, did you not like the way it free motion and switched to another machine? But you were ahead of the game because you tried out all these other machines.
Yeah.
So you picked your favorite, the best machine for free motioning, or what?
No, I actually just was forced to adapt to the machine that was at my disposal.
Oh.
So I was only testing handy quilter machines. So that was all I had experience with. So by the time I had access to have one at my house, it was a handy quilter machine. And even with like sit down quilting, people ask, do you use a stitch regulator on your sit down? And I don't, because when I had to learn how to test a sit down quilting machine, that didn't exist. And so I had to adapt my body to that. But it's different for a consumer who is on the market for a machine. I would say my main advice is try every single machine that you can, but also give yourself a lot of grace and don't expect the machine, like, this will sound cocky, but it's true, so I'm gonna say it. I can make beautiful quilts on any machine that allows free motion quilting. Like, I don't have to use a certain brand to know that I can be a great artist. And the same thing applies to everybody.
It's all the muscle memory.
It's a lot of it, yeah. Yeah.
Like when I try free motion, I just feel jerky and
Yeah.
my circles are round and I'm like.
So, yes, so let me talk to you after, because so I don't want to get like too salesy in this, but I did want to tell you guys about my graffiti quilting class that's happening. And in that, like, hearing feedback from you about your specific experience, it's like, I know exactly what design I want to show you to practice for your specific experience that you're having. So that's what I would say is, like, there are so many side quests with quilting that like, if you love ruler work, but you're not good at it, keep practicing ruler work. Or if you tried it and you're like, this just sucks, then throw your ruler away. And you don't have to be a ruler work artist, and that's okay.
Feathers are the bane of my existence, but I absolutely love them.
Yeah, and that's the cool thing is, like, with free motion quilting, you really get to figure out what your voice is. Because that's another intrinsic part of free motion, is that the way Jocelyn quilts, I can't duplicate what she does. And she can't duplicate what I do. And I can't duplicate Corey. And Corey can't duplicate me, because we're two different bodies, two different humans with two different experiences. So, okay, so this diagram that I have up right now, this is Coven Lovin. And you can see a lot more clearly kind of the path that I took with this, right? You can see the line art a lot easier. So let me show you a few other ones. So this is another quilt that I did where I was really focusing on borders. I wanted to have a section in my book that talked about echoes in quilting, and echoes are just borders that we make for ourselves. And so this was a schematic for that. And so because I knew I wanted different border designs, I took the time to plan out those borders. For the rest of the quilt, I knew that I was going to do graffiti quilting, but you can see I didn't draw out every single little motif. I literally just said floral design here, graffiti quilting here. Okay, so the idea when you're planning your quilting is plan just enough to swallow whatever fear you have about actually lowering your needle and stitching. Okay, because two things can happen if you get too wrapped up in your planning. Number one, either you just get more anxiety and then you go and look at your quilt and say, oh my gosh, this is going to suck to do everything I did. Like, it becomes a to-do list, right? And that's not what we want. The fun part should be the quilting, not the drawing. And that's the second thing that happens, is you start to enjoy the planning process, but the execution, your muscles are going to atrophy when it comes to actually executing. And that's the thing, as quilters, we have a really good taste. Like, you have that thing in you that you go and you look at a quilt and there's that quilt that you're like, goosebumps. Like, your brain is computing beauty and you're recognizing it. You have good taste. It's executing and closing the gap. Your taste might be up here, but if your skills to execute that yourself are down here, the practice is the thing that fills in the gap and brings it together, right? And so planning out your diagram not while you're quilting it is going to be a lot less stress than being like, what would it look like if I quilted a border here? Guess we'll find out. Oh, I hate it. Now let me unpick it, right? We can do a lot of those trial runs before we get to our machine, so that when we get to our machine, we just fall in love. And it feels so good, and it feels so enjoyable because it's like putting a puzzle together. We know what the puzzle's supposed to look like because we have the paper, but we're just picking out those little parts, one puzzle piece at a time. Okay, so this is another good example of, I would say that this is primary interpretive, because wherever there are lines to respect, they're pretty much respected. But then in the wide open space, I get to play and do what I want, but it's wide open space anyway. So I'm still kind of honoring the wide open space. Okay. And then let's find another one. Okay, so here's another good example. So this one is called Color Bomb. And when I quilted this one, it was a block of the month quilt. And so I thought it would, sure, I could just do graffiti quilting edge to edge across this, and that would be cool. But would it honor the blocks of the month? No. So I thought, okay, I'm going to really honor what this pattern is trying to say. If I want people to recognize that there are all these different cool blocks that were pieced, then I should at least take time to point them out and interpret them at some point or some level. Okay, and then same with this middle section, using those ditches to inform what type of motif I put in the middle is a good way to honor that piecing structure and allow those things to play together. Okay, let's see. Here's another good one. So this is a double wedding ring. I've never pieced a double wedding ring. So if anyone wants to do a trade and piece me one and I'll quilt it for you. But it's one thing that I really love about quilting is that it gives us an opportunity to see an existing quilt top with a fresh set of eyes, because we are able to add something to the structure of that quilt that didn't exist beforehand. You know, and find that symbolism. Like a double wedding ring already is packed with so much symbolism in so many beautiful ways. So it's like if you are making a double wedding ring and trying to figure out how to quilt it, like let's say it's you're making an anniversary quilt for a husband and a wife who have a family of 4. And you can say, okay, what is something that could be symbolic for each of those children, right? And you can wrap these ideological messages into it. That the quilt's already beautiful, but if we can add something extra special that shows that there was intention and thought put into the quilts, in my opinion, that just enhances something that's already so beautiful and meaningful and valuable and compassionate and heartwarming.
What color would you want?
Yeah.
I'll do it.
Yeah. Okay, I will talk. Okay, so, but I thought it would be cool to pull up the quilt kit that we've been piecing, and we could just talk about maybe a couple ways that you could interpret that. Okay. Someone remind me the name of that pattern. Harkin. Okay, so we just need a straight on one. Sorry guys, I should have done this before. Okay, this will work. Okay, so I'm gonna screenshot this bad boy. Okay, and then we're gonna take this, save to photos, and then we're gonna go to Procreate, and we're gonna go import. Oh, not that, photo.
I just need you to teach me how to use my computer.
Okay, so we have a good lineup here. All right, so what I'm gonna do is make a new layer, and I'm gonna also turn the opacity down on this just a tad. Okay, so if we were doing primary interpretive, I would say it would be something like this, right? We could stitch in the ditch if we are crazy, right? So this would be very much primary interpretive, very much interpretive, okay? And then let's say maybe in the middle we want to do like some feathers or something, hugging those edges as we go around. I do, yep. Okay, so that's one way that we could interpret that block, right? Okay, let's see what else we could do. So maybe instead of going so strict to that Irish chain shape, like I don't super love it, maybe we could do stitch in the ditch there, and then what if we did like a hibiscus style block? And we know that, whoops, sorry, in every block here, it almost will look like a 4-leaf clover since there's 4. Okay, so as I'm quilting, I know the bounds that I'm within, right? Like I'm not gonna go like this, but I'm also not gonna go too far. I'm using those blocks as my guideline. And we could repeat that over and over again. Let's maybe make it a little more intricate. Maybe on the inside we'll do like a teardrop and a curl. So now we know on each one of those, sorry if I make you dizzy.
No, I just love it.
Okay, and we would probably not use black thread on this quilt. Okay, so unless you want to, that's bold. You know, like contrasting thread can pack a punch, but it also will point out everything. So you got to be ready to feel exposed, yeah, with your quilting. Okay, and then maybe in here we can do something like this. So see how I can use those blocks to guide me, where I know that when I go to quilt it, my little teardrop just needs to kiss those top edges. It doesn't need to be anything big or small. It's just like, boom, there we go. Okay, now, but I've kind of done something interesting here, right? Because if I try to do that same thing here, it's going to overlap. And maybe I want that, but I personally probably wouldn't. So I could even say, okay, I really just love this block and I don't like this one, so I'm going to get rid of that. But let's say for this block, I want that block to really stand out. I want a flower right here. Then maybe I'll just disregard the piecing altogether and say, once that's done, I'm going to echo. And now I'm really starting to take a lot of liberties with my interpretation of the piecing, where it could almost become like an edge to edge. Let's maybe choose another block here that we would do the same thing. So I'm gonna duplicate this and I'm gonna move that up right here. Okay, so let's say I really like these 2 flowers. Maybe I'm making my quilt for Andrea and I want to show her that we are besties. And so when I give her the quilt, I say, this is me and that's you. And sometimes there's space between us because our lives are busy, but really this is more just like a driveway that's between us since we're next door neighbors. And I really love you. And even though we don't talk sometimes, not because we're fighting, just our lives are busy, I'm thinking about you. And so when you see these paths, these are me sending you good thoughts and good vibes. And she's like, oh my gosh, I was sending you good thoughts and good vibes too. And now we have something kind of cute going on there. And then maybe let's say, you know, let's say Andrea, she has a job that requires her to wake up early, and so this is the sunrise that she sees. And I am a night owl, and so I like to stay up late, and so this is the sunset between the thoughts that we send each other. And maybe I want to make that a little more prominent. Right, so I can come up with something symbolic and meaningful while still being beautiful. And then let's say our lives are crazy, so I'm just gonna do graffiti quilting all up around coming out of these things. And so when I'm planning my diagram, I don't know exactly what graffiti quilting motif is gonna go where, but I know that that's what it'll be. And when I give her this quilt, I'll say, look how crazy our lives are, but we're still connected. And we see the sunrise and we see the sunset. You wanna help me piece my top so I can make you this? Okay.
So when you do your graffiti,
Yeah.
do you have like a typical patterns that you always put in your graffiti? Or is it just, you know, like I always do this and I always do some pebbles and I always do,
Yeah.
I mean.
So great question. Okay, so to finish up, I will tell you more about my graffiti quilting mentality and kind of where that comes from. And then if you're interested in the class, we can talk about that as well. I'm gonna turn that off. I'll just set this up here. So the style of graffiti quilting or the technique surrounding graffiti quilting is very much about taking lots of different motifs and putting them in your toolbox. So your toolbox might consist of, like, what is your favorite motif to quilt right now? So in graffiti quilting, the idea is that you slowly accumulate all these different tools and you learn each one intimately. You might have learned how to use a hammer and nails, and so you go around your quilts looking for where you can hammer those nails, right? So you add all of these different tools to your toolbox, and then when you come to graffiti quilting, or come to quilting your quilt top, you say, okay, what are the tools I have at my disposal? If I only know how to quilt pebbles, all of my quilts are going to be pebbles. Or if I only know how to quilt meander, then my quilts end up meandering, right?
So you're building muscle memory.
Yes.
With that in those
Yeah.
toolboxes.
Exactly. And you can kind of think of each motif as like a person at a party. In our lives, we have all these different people. We have people that are loud and boisterous and impactful, and we have others that are very submissive and a good supporting character and obedient, right? Like I like to think of pebbles as being obedient, because whenever I'm in like a rut with my quilting, I'm like, pebbles will fit there. I could do pebbles. Like they're like just a golden retriever for me in quilting, right? And so you'll start to see those different things. So then when I'm approaching a quilt top, like I just did, where literally I drew an arrow and put GQ, that's as much planning as I do, because I know that throughout time and space, when I get to my quilt and I'm in that spot, I say, okay, what are the tools in my toolbox? Okay, a feather, a leaf, a flower petal, pebbles, and that becomes the graffiti quilting. So that's the idea behind the graffiti quilting method, is that you plan just enough so that you get excited to get started. And the more of these tools that you add to your toolbox, it's like throwing a party. And so if you can say like, hi pebbles, hi flower petals, have you guys, like, what's the conversation going on here? Or it might be like, hi arrows and hi leaves. Oh, you guys don't like each other? Okay, like, don't use those together. And you start to learn what that conversation is like and the way that you interact with each of those designs. But if free motion quilting is something that you are excited to dive into, I would love to be the person you choose to help teach you to get there. I know there's lots of classes to pick from and so many wonderful quilters who teach really great classes. So, but yeah, if you want to check out the books, please feel free to flip through them.
Tell me your YouTube.
Just Carly Porter. If you search Carly Porter quilting, then I'll. So the way that it works is each year I do a cohort, and we do a combination of on-demand courses that you get lifetime access to. So in the book, there's QR codes that lead to over 100 hours of video demonstration content, drawing diagrams, everything you could want to know, you can access there. And then we also do live stream classes once a month from July to November. And then usually in the spring, after everyone has kind of calmed down or had time to do their homework or had time to just get through the holidays. I'm one of those people that's like, I just got to get through the holidays. It's hard. So we do an overflow class in the following spring. as a group together. It's like a 3-hour live stream once a month. Yep, and it's usually, for this cohort, it's the second Saturday. But you can re-watch the replay of the video if you can't make it live, and you always get lifetime access to all of the video footage that's on demand. I take the live stream and edit and parse out the videos and then disperse them into the pages of the book where they make sense. So you can either watch the live stream and just talk about whatever the live stream is talking about, or you can go page by page and say, I want to learn this thing, scan that code, and you'll have all the information.
Awesome. So it's like 9 months, is it?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And then, but still accessed forever.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So I guess in closing, I would just like to say thank you so much for letting me talk at you. And I hope that what you take from this lecture is kind of a renewed sense of seeing so many more possibilities in addition to all the possibilities we have as quilt makers with our piecing and our fabric and our thread choices and our pattern choices, that the quilting can also be a really beautiful way to accentuate and explore and tell our stories through our fabric as just another set of toppings, not just a cherry on top, but a whole new slew of toppings on making beautiful quilts for people. So, yeah. Thanks. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Can I have a fangirl moment?
Yes.
Grab my book.
Yes.
She didn't want mine.